Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Super OK podcast, where we try to do a decent enough job to entertain you and anybody who listens with our thoughts on video games. My name is Zando, and I will be your host for this episode. And joining me today is my good buddy, Dale. How you doing, Dale?
I'm good. I am confused, though. You said entertain you and anybody who listens. By definition, anyone who is listening would be in the you category, right?
Well, I didn't want anybody to feel singled out and like get nervous and then turn the show off. Like if it's just you that I'm trying to entertain, you know, like that's a huge responsibility.
Oh, I see. Like it's too much pressure on them.
Right. Yes.
This makes sense.
If you are listening and you felt overwhelmed, I apologize, and just know that it's not just on you, but it's on you also.
Yeah.
And you.
And you and you and you.
And you and you. Anyway, we're going to talk about video games, and we're going to do that right after we talk about our highlight of the week. The highlight of the week is something that happened to us this week that just made our lives better, brighter, a happier place to be in. Dale, tell us all about your highlights. Go.
Okay, great. So pulling back the curtain a little bit, we are recording this on November 10th, which happens to be Veterans Day. And I have never worked at a place that gave me Veterans Day off until now. Now I work at a place that gives me Veterans Day off. And let me tell you what rules about that. One, it was a long week at work. It was only 4 days. It felt like 2 weeks. Two, I haven't had the opportunity to just kind of sleep in for a little while. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to turn my alarm off. And Ange knew that I hadn't slept in for a while. So she was like, I'm just not going to wake him up. And that means that today, ladies, gentlemen, and everyone else, I slept until 3 p.m. in the afternoon. It was wild. And then like Ange was making chili, and so I had to go do some shopping. And so, just like I went out, did some shopping alone, which is nice. I went out to Yates at Canterbury Village and picked up some fritters because it's Fritter Friday. And then it was like 5 o'clock and I had to get back and so that Ange could like put all this stuff into the chili. But I realized like, oh shit, I have a headache because I haven't eaten anything all day and it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon. So I legit stopped and got 2 Arby's sliders before going home to then eat dinner with Ange and her parents. So it's been a hell of a day. And I'm not going to lie, I love it.
I thought you were going to say I had a headache because I hadn't eaten anything. So I took a fucking nap. And I was going to be like, just jealous with rage. Like...
No nap, because if I did that, I would probably never sleep again because of how totally zonked out on slumber I currently am. My sleep schedule is fucked for the next forever. But right now, in this exact moment, I'm feeling real good.
Yeah, I have a hard, I have to be up and moving by 7:30 every day. And there was one day where I was a slow move, and then like it kind of bungled the whole morning routine for us. And Sarah, my wife, was like, maybe you just have to get up earlier. And I said, no, it's not possible. And I was just reminded, I was like, in the beginning of our relationship, do you remember I used to sleep till like 4 or 5 in the afternoon? Like I would just stay up until like 9 a.m. and then sleep because that was just like, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
I've almost done a full 12-hour pushback for our life together. I'm not going any further than 7:30, damn it.
I cannot imagine a scenario where someone wakes up before 7:30 voluntarily. Brody, if you hear this, I don't understand your lifestyle. Is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, but anyway, sleeping late totally rules. It was my highlight of the week.
On the flip of the coin, though, the other day I was so tired that I fell asleep by 8:30 p.m. and that was kind of cool too. But I also hated it because I couldn't like talk to people.
Yeah, I get that.
So you miss out on that.
What was your highlight?
My highlight was that this past Tuesday was a voting day, which meant my daughter got the day off of kindergarten but for some reason my son still had preschool. And it was also the first day of his enrichment classes, which is like just a bonus. Like he's there for an extra 2.5 hours of that day. It was science class. So he got to
Getting
stay
rich.
right. He got enriched, man. He got to eat lunch at school, and then he got to do like a science experiment where they made popcorn dance or some crazy shit like that. He's 3. He doesn't really tell me what happens.
I'm sorry. Did you say popcorn dance?
Popcorn dance is what I heard the other kids say. Like, we made popcorn dance. Like, Ben, what'd you do today? He goes, a science. I was like, okay. Because he's fucking 3, and that's
you
how
sure
he tells.
did, bud.
But I got the day off with my daughter, and that was a lot of fun. We planned on like going to the movies. She had not seen the new Paw Patrol movie yet, so I was like hyping it up, like, "Hey, we're gonna go to the theater. We're gonna go see Paw Patrol." And I made it a special day for her. I remember having days off when I was in school and feeling like there was something in the air different about having the day off of school when you were younger.
Yeah.
So I was just like, you know what? I'm going to try to make this just as special as we can. We dropped my son off at school, and then we came back home and like played a little bit, and then I took her to take bottles back, as she got to like put the bottles in the machine for the first time. She's never done that before, so she had fun with that. And then we went to the theater. She got cotton candy, she got popcorn, she got a Slurpee. Like she was like so amped. We went to the Imagine in Royal Oak, and they've got like a parking garage, and she wanted to park all the way at the fucking top, so we did. And she like called down to people like, hello down there. And they like looked up and waved, and she was just thrilled. She had just such a good time. And
amazing.
Yeah. And afterwards we like asked the ladies like, hey, we can refill our popcorn, right? And they're like, absolutely you can. So we're just driving home. We're still munching on movie popcorn, and we're just like making games out of it. We stopped by Target. We got a Paw Patrol toy for her. Like it was just a good day with my 6-year-old. And it was just awesome. I loved spending the time with her. She didn't she wasn't in a bad mood the entire day. Nothing like set her off and made her like an obnoxious thing to be around, which happens with 6-year-olds sometimes. Like just something can flip a switch, and you're like, why am I hanging out with this kid? But it was just genuinely like a good, like heart-filling day. And so that was easily my highlight of the week this week.
That sounds super delightful. And it reminds me of how like easy it is to forget about the little, like letting the little things give you joy, you know? Like the idea of parking at the top of a parking garage, when you said that, I was like, oh shit, man, you're going to like have to wait for the elevator, or it's going to be like a long walk down or whatever. But no, just like, yeah, man, I get to look down on people and wave at them. Like that's great. But that's the sort of thing that I would never think of. And kids rule is basically what I'm trying to say here.
It's true.
Yeah.
Oh, that's man. Awesome. And so the cool thing about the Paw Patrol movie, for those of you who are not well versed in the current state of the Paw Patrol, the new movie was the Mighty movie, where a meteor crash lands and they get all superpowers and whatnot. And they got the movie focused on Skye, which is like the original female dog, and that's my daughter's favorite character. So it kind of talked about how she got her powers and like why she felt like insignificant and little and all that. So seeing her like go from this little dog to being like, oh, I've got all these powers, I'm the strongest one here. And seeing Helen just like delight in the fact that her favorite character got the limelight, was really cool.
That's very cool.
Yeah. And it got me thinking about other superheroes, because after going on Tuesday to see the Mighty movie of Paw Patrol, on Thursday, aka yesterday, because again, we're recording on November 10th, the Marvels came out, and I got to go see that. So superheroes have been on the mind. And so I thought we would talk about the time in 1982 when Marvel launched their very first video game titled Spider-Man for the Atari 2600, starring, of course, Spider-Man. And then just last month, a mere 20 or 41 years later, Marvel's Spider-Man 2 was released for the PlayStation 5. Hard to believe it took that long for a sequel, huh?
God damn it. I cannot believe that I know you did it intentionally, but pronouncing Atari,
Atari like, Mario Brothers.
Like it killed me. It killed me. And then to make this terrible joke about Spider-Man in 1982 to Spider-Man 2 this year also killed me. Like, what? No, just no.
Fine. I guess we can talk about all the other Marvel movies or Marvel games that have come out over the year. And this, like I said, this past week being the official release of the Marvels, we've all got Marvel fever, and so we're going to talk about Marvel games that came out over the past 41 years. So first off, let's like go back and think about our Marvel history and how we first got introduced to the world of Marvel. Tell me what that meet cute was.
Yeah, sure. I'll answer this. It might have. I know this is insane. It legitimately may have been playing the Marvel Spider-Man game on the Atari, because when I was a kid, I had it in television, but my next door neighbor had the Atari, and we'd go over there all the time and play the Atari because it was so superior to the Intellivision. It was wild. And I distinctly remember playing this game because I remember it was hard as balls. It was like you're climbing up the outside of this building. You have a limited amount of webbing. You have to like dodge like birds and flower pots. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like Green Goblin is just hurling explosions at you. Like shit is wild in that game. So it might have been that. But if it wasn't that when I was a kid, then it was probably one of the really bad live action TV shows from the 70s that were like rebroadcast constantly when I was a kid. Either the bad Spider-Man one, because that one aired on CBS, or the bad Hulk one with Lou Ferrigno that also aired on CBS. So probably one of those two. I distinctly remember there was like a 2-part episode of the Hulk where he fought against Thor. And I thought that was so badass that I remembered it as, oh yeah, Thor had a TV show also, but no, it was just like 2 episodes in the Lou Ferrigno show. Both of them were bad. Do not go and look at them unless you are just doing it for a laugh, in which case enjoy.
Yeah. So speaking of it being like a Marvel kind of week, it was Lou Ferrigno's birthday just yesterday.
Oh shit! How old is Lou Ferrigno?
You want to take a guess?
I'm gonna guess 76.
72.
Shit, man.
Not far off.
Yeah.
Yeah. For some reason in my head, I thought he'd be much older.
I thought he was one of those guys who would look really good for his age, but no, he just looks his age.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, for me, my Marvel meet cute. I'm sure I was like aware of like the Hulk show, not knowing that it was Marvel, or seeing some of my brother's old comics. But my real first step into the Marvel universe was when the X-Men cartoon came out in the 90s. A buddy of mine was real into it, and that was like I had just changed schools, and so I needed to like make friends, and so I was like, if he's into it, I'm into it. So I started watching it. And he also collected the X-Men 1994 Fleer Ultra cards, and those were also available at my local video or my rental shop. So I would go every week. I would get a game and I'd get a pack of cards, and we would just trade those cards. And I started learning about all these other characters that I'd never even seen in the cartoon, and just loved that. And then like the Spider-Man cards came out shortly after that when the Spider-Man cartoon aired, and so I was like learning all of these characters. And that's what really sucked me into all of it. And I started to learn like alter egos and all that kind of stuff, and just loved looking at those old cards.
Dude, that's awesome. The X-Men cartoon from the 90s was legitimately amazing. Like legitimately it holds up too. If you go back and you watch it today, like I think it's on Disney Plus or something like that.
Yeah.
The first 3 seasons, at least, if you go back and watch it, it still is like an absolutely amazing television show.
Yeah. And they either are going to, or it has already come out. They're doing X-Men 97, where they're making another cartoon series based in that universe with that similar art style.
Oh, that's cool. I did not know that.
Yeah, I was in Target this morning, and they have action figures for it, and so I was like, "Oh, I forgot that is coming out." So I don't know if it's out already or if it's coming out very soon, but that's one of those things that I'm thinking like, oh man, because Ben's got like this Hulk obsession, and now like as I'm playing Marvel Snap, he like wants to see the cards, he wants to point out Deadpool and Spider-Man and all the characters he knows.
Yeah.
So even though I think he might be a little young for the X-Men cartoon, just still show it to him, be like, "Hey, here we go, let's watch this together."
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's awesome.
look forward to jumping back into the old X-Men stuff.
Also, those trading cards ruled.
I
Just
still have
as
a
a side
complete
note.
set of the 94 Fleer in a binder in my closet over here, and they're fun to look at every once in a while.
That's awesome.
They're not worth anything. I wish they
No.
were, but
They were so mass produced. Everybody thought that they were going to be like the hottest shit, and they just made billions of cards, and so they're
Mhm.
not worth anything. But man, they're
Yeah.
still cool.
They are, and the cool artwork. And then I think earlier in the 90s they had some that would like have that would like multicolored bars of their different stats, and I had some of those, and those were always cool to look at.
Nice. Yeah,
All right,
I
well, let's get in.
remember. So I was just gonna say, I remember the Upper Deck Marvel cards that were like higher quality than the Fleer cards, and they were like,
Yeah, they were like thicker.
yeah, really crazy. So
I think they were called the Flare because there was Fleer and then like Flare cards, and those were like
Maybe.
$2 or $3 more per pack, and they came in like almost like a solid cardboard box, and those
Yeah.
were like real fancy.
Yep.
Yeah, man, I miss trading cards.
Me too. Trading cards were sweet, even though they had no purpose.
Right. All right, well, let's get into those games. Let's do you remember your first Marvel video game? And if not, what are some of your earliest memories of the Marvel video games? For me, go ahead.
No, you go, please.
All right. Fair enough. For me, I remember the X-Men game for the Sega Genesis releasing, feeling like it was a really big deal. I remember they were like, I would watch like Cartoon Network or like MTV when I was younger, trying to watch Beavis and Butthead reruns and stuff, and seeing the commercial for it. At least I feel like I saw the commercial for it a bunch, and just the anticipation for that. And that cover was like had like one of those like lithographic, like you kind of turn it and it changes color kind of things. And you could play as a bunch of different X-Men. And I remember it being really hard. So I think that might have been my first one. And I think, and also Maximum Carnage came out around a similar time. And you know, he had that red cartridge and that menacing image of Carnage peeking over. So that was a pretty big one for me too, because I think up until those two came out, all we really had that was like a somewhat tolerable game was the Spider-Man and the X-Men Arcade's Revenge, and that ain't saying much.
Yeah.
I don't know if you remember that. The sound effects in that one were just atrocious, and like you could play as Gambit, which I was stoked for as a fan of the X-Men cartoon, but it did not feel like Gambit.
No.
And it was the old style, like Wolverine had his like brown and yellow costume instead of the yellow and blue. Cyclops had the skull cap kind of thing, and Storm looked weird. Like it was a very weird game. But man, Maximum Carnage in that theme song. Do you remember it?
I remember it a little bit.
It's by the band Green Jello. Spelled Green Jelly because Green Jello like actually was threatened legal action on them for using the name. But they took the actual song Carnage Rules by Green Jello and modified it for the SNES and Genesis. And since neither of those sound great, I'm just going to play a little clip of Carnage Rules for you. That main riff of like that was like burned into my memory for so long. And when the late 90s, when I realized it was an actual band, I got so excited and bought the CD immediately and fell in love with them. So
yeah,
man, so good.
I remember you brought up X-Men Arcade's Revenge, and I remember that had one of the most ridiculous things ever seen in video games, where you get to the end of a level and it says that you have to reset the computer to move forward.
Mm-hmm.
And in order to do so, you have to actually hit the physical reset button on the system, and it lets you move to the next level. But it's like, who's going to do that? In literally every other game, hitting reset destroys all of your progress. So
yeah,
shit's stupid.
Yeah, I just remember the music being piss poor and the sound effects being awful, and like the spider sense sound was just it sounded like you were getting electrocuted, and so you didn't know if you were hurt or if you were okay.
Yeah, ridiculous.
That's rough.
Outside of the OG Atari game, I think my first Marvel video game was the side-scrolling shoot 'em up Silver Surfer. I remember we rented it. I remember it was not very good. It's just
that
like
soundtrack though.
Was it good? I don't
Oh,
remember.
dude. It has no business having such a. I don't have it prepped. I wish I would have known that you're going to say Silver Surfer because I absolutely would have. If you have not heard Silver Surfer's theme music, like look for. I think it's Stage 2 specifically. The guy who did the music also did like Pictionary for NES, and again another game that has no business having a solid soundtrack, and it's amazing.
That's
It's
great.
so insanely like hard rock and metal sounding. Like it's real good.
Yeah. I just remember that this game was like way too hard for how powerful Silver Surfer is supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, he's like he's not exactly omnipotent, but he like has a fraction of the power of Galactus, right?
Mhm.
So he should be like pretty damn powerful, and instead it's like, no, man, you're not even going to make it through the first level. Like, deal with it.
Yeah, and it not only was it side scrolling, it was auto scrolling,
Yeah,
which just made it so much worse.
yeah, it was ridiculous. So, don't play the game, but I guess check out the soundtrack.
Dude, listen to that soundtrack. It's so good.
I'm going to listen to it right after this.
Perfect. But looking at the history of Marvel games, it's pretty to see some of the most popular titles have starred or heavily focused on the world of Spider-Man. What is it about Spider-Man that you think lends itself so easily to video games?
Look, I think that you've got the perfect triumvirate here. You've got the fact that he is cool, he's like quick-witted, and he's funny while he's like fighting bad guys and all of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think he has a movement tech that lends itself really well to video games, right? Like you're never going to see an Iceman video game because ice, like, despite the fact that Bobby Drake's thing about like freezing the air in front of him so he can like slide around, like that would not translate to a video game, right?
Mm-hmm.
Flight, like from Storm, would not translate well to a video game. But web slinging, that almost like brachiation kind of thing that Spider-Man does, it's
Mm-hmm.
unique, it's cool, but it also translates really well to like a digital format. And then I think the last piece of that is he has an awesome cast of villains.
Yeah.
There's a ton of different great villains. All of them would make for great video game fodder, right? Like you think about Spider-Man 2018, and you've got like some really solid villains in there. No spoilers for a game that came out 5 years ago, but like there's some great villains there. You take a look at the Miles Morales video game, and there are other great villains there. So it's just like the villains really help make the video games feel great. And if you
Yeah.
look at the Spider-Man games that aren't so good, a lot of them tend to focus on the not so good villains. So, you know,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think his popularity certainly doesn't hurt the
yeah,
situation, and I think that also goes towards the villains. Like if you've read a Spider-Man comic, it might not be the same as somebody else, and so there was probably a different villain there. So I think those two things he's kind of like Marvel's Batman in a way. Like everybody has a pretty good idea of most of the villains of Batman, and same with Spider-Man. Like there's the Sinister Six, but then
yeah.
there's also those other ones that aren't quite as well known who are still awesome. And I think your call out of the Spider-Man 2018 game does that.
Mhm.
Again, I don't want to. I mean, again, it's 5 years old, but there were
Yeah.
some characters that, like, even as a fairly avid Spider-Man fan, there were characters that I was like, I kind of know who that is, but I did not expect them to translate into the game and be like such a big deal. And it's
Yeah.
also just cool to see in the different kind of video game universes how they will take those villains and how are they going to do that. Like, oh, Electro's coming, but how are they going to do Electro here? And I
Mhm.
think that's always a cool thing to see.
Yeah, and I think one other piece of it that really helps is like Marvel has this thing in their world where all of the characters kind of live in the same space. And
Hmm.
so it's like the villains that Spider-Man deals with are sometimes too powerful for just Spider-Man. And so he needs to team up with other people and that sort of thing. And so that makes it like where they're the villains can feel more formidable. It's
Hmm.
like if you have a Superman video game, Superman in theory could just like fly into orbit and then shoot Lex Luthor through his mind bullet, like with his
Right.
eyes, right? Spider-Man doesn't have that. Spider-Man feels like the underdog, and everybody wants to play as the underdog. Everybody wants to root for the underdog. And so I think that it really translates into the video games where it's like, oh, I feel like I'm actually surmounting challenges that I shouldn't be able to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I like the duality of sometimes they'll look when they throw the story elements in of like I'm Peter Parker now and I'm running into Norman Osborn, and there's not really that, like, he's not Green Goblin and I'm not Spider, and so there's that tension there. Or
Yep.
and again, Spider-Man 2018 did this really well with Otto Octavius and that whole thing. So
Yes,
it's always
very
neat to see
much
how
so.
they're going to do that, and like, oh, is this going to be a thing? Are they going to save it for a sequel? And just the interactions between the characters, I think, is really well known, which I think again is just attributed to the fact that Spider-Man is such a popular character.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, speaking of Spider-Man, what have been some of your favorite Spider-Man games?
Ooh. Obviously, you got to give your shout out, your flowers to Spider-Man 2018 and Miles Morales. They were both absolutely excellent. I platinum Spider-Man 2018. I haven't had a chance to play Spider-Man 2 yet, since my backlog is so full. And then there are a bunch of games that I really enjoyed that feature Spider-Man, like Spider-Man's in them, but might not necessarily be a Spider-Man game specifically. So I don't know if those count. I'm going to hold off on talking about those until maybe a little bit later in this episode.
Fair enough. Yeah, I think Spider-Man 2018 is objectively the best Spider-Man game I've played. I have not played Miles Morales yet. And obviously I don't own a PlayStation 5, so I don't have a way to play Spider-Man 2. I'm looking forward to playing Miles Morales on my PC once I get some of these other games out of the way. But I also really enjoyed Spider-Man 2 for the one that came out on Xbox and PlayStation 2. Not that this is going to be a confusing thing of Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 and all the different times it's been remade. But the Tobey Maguire movie tie-in, Spider-Man 2 specifically, I think it was kind of the precursor to 2018, where you kind of had this open world. You could jump around. There were different missions that would pop up. Like there was a kid who was constantly losing their balloon, and you could scale the buildings and help them find it. I thought that was just like a really
that.
Yeah, just the kid that cries out, "Oh no, my balloon!" And you have to go chase it down. But I thought that one was really well done. It introduced characters, villains that weren't in the movie. It really does, like, in the grand scheme of things, feel like the demo for what eventually became Spider-Man 2018. Because again, like I said, you did have just the excellent web slinging and the exploration and all that. Also, and I know this is a weird pull, but Ultimate Spider-Man for the DS, when they were pushing the Ultimate Spider-Man games, they of course made it for the DS and I think maybe the PSP, but the DS was like a cell shaded, like, side scrolling kind of thing, and it still had like voice acting and all that, so it kind of introduced you to the whole like Ultimate universe, and I just really enjoyed it. I picked it up on a whim because I think it was on super clearance while I was working at Circuit City, and I just really enjoyed it. There's a moment where you, like, Rhino was one of the first villains you come up, and there's just classic Spider-Man like lines of, like, he's like, "Hey, you better stop coming in the, oh my god, I forgot my quip because of how large you are and how intimidated I am." It's just it's just like a really charming thing, and it was a simple enough game that I was able to kind of play on the go, and I really enjoyed that. I tried to play the PlayStation 2 version, and I was just like, this isn't the DS version. I don't I'm not into this one as much, but
what a weird thing, because normally it's the exact opposite, where it's like, oh, this game's not as good as the PS2 version, but no, I guess the DS version was the best one.
Oh, I'm sure the PS2 version was actually superior, but I just played through that one first, and I was like, man, this is not the one that I knew. Or the story was so similar, I'm like, I already did all this.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, there's definitely a Spider-Man bias when it comes to video games, but he's not the only Marvel hero, damn it. What other Marvel character do you think could be as successful in a video game as Spider-Man, and how do you think they would do it?
I want to hear your
take this one
first.
Yeah. So they've tried this game before to varying degrees of success. And I know it got ported, like it came out on PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360, and I think it also got ported to the PS4 and Xbox One. But I think Deadpool is the next obvious choice. It's a character that even comic book fans don't necessarily are more familiar with because of the movies, and he's just a goofy character. And I think you just really lean into that. because I was trying to think
Okay.
of like where do you have like I try to think of successful superhero games and I think of the Arkham series with Batman.
Yep.
And it's again, it goes back to that rogues gallery. You need to know the other characters. And I think Deadpool could do that, where it's just a zany adventure where you take on all sorts of well-known Marvel heroes and villains. It doesn't have to be like a Deadpool villain. It could literally just be, oh, here's Wolverine, or here is Spider-Man, and you got to fight Spider-Man. I think it'd be cool to just throw Deadpool into a straight up gauntlet of all the Marvel video game greatest hits. Let him fight through Maximum Carnage. Let him do the card based battling of Midnight Suns, and let him rip Square Enix's Avengers a new one. I would love to hear, especially a Ryan Reynolds Deadpool, just making fun of the Avengers at Home game that we got.
Yeah. Oh man, that's funny. The crazy thing about this is there was a Deadpool video game, and I actually remember it getting like not amazing, but like pretty decent reviews.
Yeah,
But then there was like some weird shit where it got like pulled from stores over like licensing rights or something.
I
And
think
then they
that
like
was.
brought it back out. It was like absolutely insane.
Yeah, I
So-
played a little bit of it because it came out while I was working at at Family Video, the game rental store that I was at.
Mhm.
And it wasn't bad. It just was like it kind of suffered from what I was worried the Deadpool movie was going to do. It was just like leaning into just like raunchy comedy. Anyway, like I said, it wasn't bad. It just didn't like after you played the first two levels, you're like, okay, I kind of get where this is going, and it's just going to be a rinse and repeat every single level.
Yeah.
So I kind of fell out of it after the first couple levels.
Yeah, that makes sense. So my answer to this is, why has there not yet been an X-Men house management game, right? Where you are Professor X trying to start the X Mansion, start the school for wayward mutants or whatever. And you have to like try and build a better campus to attract different, better mutants. You can send the mutants that you have on away missions to get more resources, to stop crimes, to improve public perception of mutants, like that sort of stuff. Sometimes the mutants come to you with like moral dilemmas, and it might cause other issues. Like some of your kids might leave to join up with Magneto. There might be some like local laws that you have to deal with, some national laws that you have to deal with, like that sort of stuff. Then every once in a while, a villain shows up to try and destroy the mansion, and all of the mutants who aren't on away missions have to like work together to try and fight that villain who's there. This shit sounds like a gold mine. It sounds like such a good game, and I don't know why they haven't made it yet.
Yeah, with the wide array of mutant characters, I think you're definitely onto something there.
Yeah,
that would be neat. Like just like you said, sending them out on missions, and then like a random RNG event of a villain coming, and you have to like figure out, okay, this is what I've got, and here's what we're doing.
Yeah, it's like, oh shit, like Wolverine and Cyclops and Colossus are all out there. Like, I guess Beast and Jubilee are taking on Juggernaut. Like, let's hope he doesn't run through the whole mansion.
Right. That does sound pretty rad. I was a little bit like weary at first, but no, I think you sold me on it. I think that sounds awesome. Well, let's continue to shift our focus away from Spider-Man and talk about our favorite Marvel video games that aren't solely focused on the web slinger. And I'll let you take this one first because you kind of led into it before. What are some of your favorite Marvel games that don't have anything to do, or not that aren't focused specifically on Spider-Man?
Right,
It can
like
be in them.
That's the tricky part, right? Like Marvel vs. Capcom. Is that a Spider-Man game? I don't think it is, but he is a playable character in it, right? What about
Yeah,
like
he's also featured prominently on the center of the cover, if I remember correctly.
He is, right? He's definitely on there, but I don't think of that as a Spider-Man game. I also don't think of it as a Wolverine game or a Servbot game, for instance. Right? It's like a different thing where it's just like these are all playable characters. What about like Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2? Both of those games are absolute masterpieces. Both of them have Spider-Man as a playable character.
Mhm.
Like, are those Spider-Man games? I don't know. But I love all of them. Marvel Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2, really, really good. I tried playing 3 and I just couldn't get into it. Maybe I need to give it another shot where I play it like online with somebody. But playing it solo, it just did not hit the same way that Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2 did. But some games that definitely did not have Spider-Man in them that I absolutely loved from Marvel. I've talked about Incredible Hulk's Ultimate Destruction in the past. That game is amazing. It takes my favorite thing about GTA, which is like building up a star rating and then seeing how long you can last, and turns that whole thing into a game where you're just like, all right, I'm on a map. I got to destroy everything. Oh shit, there's a helicopter. I guess I better throw it at another helicopter. Like, that's awesome. Oh, there's a cop car here. I guess I better slap my hands together so hard that it makes a sonic boom and knocks the car into the stratosphere. Like, the game is awesome. And then a game that I know for a fact you love, I love, and most people with a heart love, the X-Men arcade game.
We're going to gush about this.
Yeah, I love it so much. I will stop talking about it so I can continue talking about it after you talk about your other favorite Marvel video games that are not Spider-Man based.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think Marvel Snap has to be my top because it's just the amount of time that I've put into that game over the past year. But Marvel Ultimate Alliance,
there's like 6 Spider-Mans.
But he's Series 3, so sometimes you might not get him right away. Our Marvel Ultimate Alliance 2, like you mentioned, Ultimate Alliance 1 and 2 are both great. 2 it took on the Civil War storyline, and that was the game that kind of got me deciding, like, you know what, I'm going to start reading the comics like a little bit more in depth than I used to. So that kind of got me into that. I got all the achievements through that game, so that one will always hold a special place in my heart. In like 1995 or 96, there was a game called X-Men Mutant Apocalypse for the SNES. That just had like really solid graphics. It was a Capcom side-scrolling game, and I remember going to a Service Merchandise, if you remember that store, with my mom, and they had that game, and I was like, "Hey, can I get this?" And we got it in 5. We got home, and like, it was the first time I'd ever gotten a video game and beat it the same day, and so that's
a power move.
I know, and I was like, "Holy shit, I beat this game already!" And my mom's like, "You beat it already?" Like. What are you doing?
I'm taking that shit back to Service Merchandise, the store where everything's in a glass case.
Yeah. But yeah, that game was really cool. And I think I want to say there were like some kind of like fighting game inputs to do certain moves. And maybe I'm just wishing that. I could be wrong. I don't remember, but the graphics were pretty neat, and there was more of the style of the X-Men cartoon versus the X-Men and Spider-Man Arcade's Revenge game. So I really liked that one. And of course, the motherfucking X-Men arcade game with the ultra wide controller deck and the 2 goddamn TVs mounted all weird and reflecting off mirrors.
Okay, what?
Yeah, so if you find like one of the original arcade machines, you know how it's like extra wide, you have that like really wide screen display. So what they did is the left screen is a TV mounted normally. So you look at it as if you normally would. And the other one is off to the side, upside down, and mounted on the underneath, and it reflects off of a mirror, so it looks like one continuous screen.
I did not know that until now.
Yeah,
that's insane. I just thought it was like a super wide CRT television.
Oh no, it's the last time I saw one in the wild, I think there's like multiple barcades in Detroit at this point. But one of them, I think it's Ready Player One, had it there, and my wife and I went there for our anniversary one year and played through the entire thing. And I remember saying, like, how does this even work? And I was like, how do they do that overlap with these 2 screens? Like, you would think there's going to be a border. And that's when I realized, like, oh, this is a mirror. It might be like a 2-way glass kind of thing where you can see the one TV and the other one's reflected up to make it look like it's one continuous screen.
That's so
if you happen to catch one, take a look. It's really wild how they do it.
Yeah, there's one in a barcade near us. I was like looking at it like not more than 3 weeks ago. It's so crazy that I didn't realize that it's a mirror.
Yeah, it's always neat to grab a couple friends and play through that game, and someone's always going to be stuck with Dazzler. Sorry about that, but someone is going to have Colossus,
and you'll know that I'm going to be Colossus. I'm going to make the Colossus noise all the time. I was going to do it with my mouth, but then you did it with a soundboard. That's so much better. I thought
you did it with your mouth.
It's so good every time.
Every single time. There was a mall in Livonia called Wonderland, like the Wonderland Mall, and they had that machine was there, and every time I walked past, it was just constantly, and that's That's all I think of when I hear that game anymore. I can't look at a picture of Colossus and not have that sound.
I love that. I wish that sound effect was like ubiquitous. I wish that was like the Wilhelm scream of powering up. Like anytime someone powers up, I want to hear it. Goku goes Super Saiyan. That sound. It's so good.
I thought you were just going to keep naming people who powered up, so
I couldn't think of any others. I thought about it.
Mario gets a mushroom.
Clark Kent takes off his glasses. It's so good. Oh God! I hope there's nobody out there who hates that sound because they're gonna hate this episode.
Listen, anybody who hates that sound, I'm gonna fight. And you know what? They are
welcome to die.
Also, a great sound effect from that fucking game. Oh man, I love it so much. So
Magneto,
ridiculous.
master of magnet.
Oh.
The only sound effect that I couldn't find, which I'm so disappointed, is that the time when you fight Wendigo in the game and he just jumps out of the screen and goes Wendigo,
like a Pokemon.
Yeah. And so speaking of my son and getting him to watch Marvel stuff, they have a new Lego Code Red movie where the collector is just trying to collect any character who has the word red in their name.
Okay.
And at one point they have to fight Wendigo, and Wendigo does jump out and go Wendigo. I was like, yes,
that's awesome.
So if you happen to have the Wendigo sound effect from the X-Men game, jump on our Discord and send it to me because I need it.
Discord now has like a soundboard thing. We'll put it on the soundboard there.
You know what else is going on there?
Oh yeah, it is. Oh my God, absolutely amazing.
It's so good. And I was so happy when they put it on Xbox Live Arcade, and so I could just play it whenever I wanted to. Man, if you've not played that game and you like beat 'em ups and you like Marvel, what the hell's wrong with you?
Yeah, it's real good. It might be the best. It might be the best arcade game of all time. It's up there.
Yeah. I mean, the Simpsons arcade game is right. I mean, any of those like multiplayer side-scrolling beat 'em up games.
Yeah, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one is classic. Yep. I've talked at length about how much I love the Dungeons and Dragons one. Like, there's so many good side-scrolling beat 'em up arcade games, but
to a lesser extent, Captain America and the Avengers is also it's decent, but it does have a pretty solid, like you fight Whirlwind in one of the first levels and he just comes out and goes, So that's another sound effect we need is Whirlwind laughing at you with that ridiculous laugh.
I love it. I love it.
Let's go from good Marvel games to a bad one, because
there's Marvel game.
Have we ever played a bad Marvel game? There are a lot of them. And if so, which ones and why were they so bad?
Okay. Obviously, Marvel's Avengers by Crystal Dynamics was just so bad. It took what should have been an utter slam dunk and dunked it directly into the toilet. But we have talked about that video game a ton on this podcast. So instead, I want to talk about how they have somehow never managed to make a good Fantastic Four game. It is baffling to the mind. You have 4 characters, all of whom have interesting, cool, unique powers. And they just, every time they try and make one, they shit the bed completely. Like, it should be simple. Like make it
a side-scrolling video game, a side-scrolling beat 'em up.
Yeah, I mean, make it to where you can switch between them to solve different puzzles in an open world game. Like do a Spider-Man, but where Reed Richards is swinging through the city. You know, like fucking Human Torch can fly. Like figure it out, guys. Yeah. The thing can take a taxi sometimes. Like. Like the game should be easy to make like a fun, like somewhat goofy Fantastic Four game. And they just never have been able to. And I do not understand
it. The NES X-Men game is pretty horrendous.
Oh yeah.
I don't even remember what is specifically bad about it other than I just hated it and I don't ever want to play it again or remember it. Watch videos of it. That's fine. Just don't subject yourself to it. It's
I
like
remember
so bad.
this is like a top down
Yeah.
one, right? And I
Yep.
remember like Nightcrawler is in it, and his power is that he can walk through walls. Like they couldn't even figure out how to make him teleport, so he can just walk through walls, which is insane because that is literally Kitty Pryde's power. So if you were going
Right.
to do that, just have her in the game.
And the game had like a cool cover art. It's just that the graphics themselves are not good.
Ugh.
The top down like scroll up kind of game was just bad. It's real bad. I also had a hard time getting into the Lego Marvel superhero games, but that might have been more to the fault of the formulaic style of the Lego games and not so much of those games being bad itself. You can only
Yeah.
collect so many bricks and look for the hidden things so many times before you're just like, no, this isn't for me anymore.
Yeah. I get the Lego games. I understand there's a specific demographic and there's a specific group of people who love them. I have never been able to play it through a Lego game all the way. Like I basically play one level and I'm like, yep, I get it. And then I'm done.
Yeah. The cutscenes are cute, but that's not enough to get me to play through. Those levels are like long.
Yeah.
And then especially when you're trying to like, I need to collect every single thing on here and then also find a hidden thing. Like in theory, I don't know how they can improve on that and make it more of an enjoyable game, but I wish they would figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I understand the sponsor contacted you not knowing I was going to be the host of this episode. So you want to give us the sponsored question this time?
Yeah, sure. This question is sponsored by Dr. Bong, who is the real nemesis in Marvel. Like his real name is Dr. Bong, and he is the real nemesis of the real Marvel character Howard the Duck. And Dr. Bong has a bell for his head. Dr. Bong pointed out that Howard the Duck's Wikipedia page looks like a goddamn fever dream, by the way. There's shit in there about the Congress of Realities. There is someone named Throg the Nether Spawn, and also a character named Bessie the Hell Cow, who is apparently a vampiric cow that Howard the Duck is guilty of murdering. And all of that is just in the first paragraph of Howard the Duck's biography. So what
Wow.
Dr. Bong wants to know is which Marvel superhero would have the worst video game? Please describe it for Dr. Bong. And I think Dr. Bong was trying to get us to say Howard the Duck here, but that's not my answer. What's your answer?
I was actually surprised to find out that Dr. Bong was a bell and not like an actual bong. Like I thought that was where they were going with that. Like just
Yeah.
Howard the Duck's going to be a real weird character, but
Nope.
So we're going to jump back to the X-Men cartoon, and the game is going to star Morph, and you're going to get to the end of the first level and you're going to die. And that's the game. And granted, Morph comes back in the series, but I believe he's a villain at that point, and you can't play a villain in a superhero game. Sorry, it just doesn't work. So
Okay.
Morph the adventure. The bright side of the Morph game, the one shining thing that people are like, yeah, Morph sucked because it was only one level, but it did bring back that classic line from the X-Men cartoon where Wolverine is pissed off at Cyclops and tears the roof off his car and then tells one of the X-Men, tell Psyche, I made him a convertible. And so that's going to be there.
I mean, that's pretty great.
Yeah.
That is pretty great.
Remember how mad Wolverine was that they left Morph to die? That was like a whole thing.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Don't get me wrong, but man, he was real angry about that.
Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. So it's funny because you and I have similar answers. I want to base a video game off of Bailey Hoskins,
The daughter of Bob Hoskins.
I wish. No, Bailey Hoskin is a character who is an X-Men, is a mutant, and has a pretty cool mutant power in that they can explode themselves. Like they'll like explode. Except their mutant power does not include any form of regeneration or anything like that. So they have a mutant power that they can only use once and then they will be dead, which is absolutely wild. And basically the game that I thought of a funny game, but it would probably be pretty good to play, which was more and more escalating scenarios where like, is this where Bailey Hoskins has to die? You know, where it's kind of like the trolley problem, but it's always just like, or do you explode Bailey Hoskins? But that actually sounds good. And so instead, the game that I'm going to play is Bailey Hoskins sitting in a room at, again, the School for Gifted Mutants, just waiting to like be put on an away team. So you're just like, and you can see like on the TV, like all the stuff that the X-Men are doing. And you're like, just like, okay, yep, I guess I'll do my physics homework, you know, like,
and you actually have to do the physics homework and show your work.
Yes, yeah, you got to do it all. So that's the worst Marvel video game that I could possibly think of.
Now, what if it's like one of those games that's just supposed to make you mad, like the Getting Over It game? And you just are playing a normal adventure and you can fight characters, you can do different fighting moves and whatnot, but the command inputs change sporadically, RNG. And so as you're moving around, you're like, I'm going to punch this guy in the face. Oh, all of a sudden that's my superpower and I'm dead. The idea is you don't have to use your superpowers. You have to be cognizant that, you know, every like 90 seconds or so, the controllers are going to change. You better not be pressing a button. And if you do, you better hope you hit the right one.
Oh my God, that sounds insane. I'm also just imagining like a scenario where you were like robbing a bank, right? And you and like your crew or whatever is in the bank, and suddenly someone stands up and like grabs one of the bank robbers and explodes, killing both of them. But that's it. Nothing else happens. It's like, what the fuck? It's such an insane scenario.
And the bank robbers are like sad that their friend's gone, but like also excited that their cut just got bigger.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly wild. Bailey Hoskins, everybody, look him up. Real Marvel superhero in quotations.
Man,
yeah.
I never even heard of Bailey Hoskins, and I've heard of, I mean, Hellcow we know because of Marvel Snap, but yeah, I'm curious about who Throg the Neverspawn is. I just assumed it was Frog Thor. When I see that name Throg, I think of that.
Nope, Throg, not Frog. However you pronounce it, I don't know. I'm drunk.
You know who might have a worse game?
Who
is Dan?
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yeah.
What would his powers be? Just to not be someone who gets yelled. I don't know, man.
I think his
Dan. I can't even think of anything funny, and you ruined this episode.
Yeah, fucking Dan, not having any funny superpowers. How dare you? I think his power is of the wallet, so you can pay his way to the lighthouse in Destiny 2. He's got the strongest card of all, the credit card.
I think the thing that jumps to my mind with Dan now is his wife bought a secondhand treadmill, and he was like really pissed off about it, and he told this whole story. So now I think his video game has to be trying to return this secondhand treadmill.
Why was he mad?
You have to ask him if you can get beyond just saying, "Hey, fuck you, Dan." Maybe you find out the treadmill story.
I'm gonna
find the best place to do that.
Yeah,
is in the Discord.
Yes. Yeah, I'm gonna find.
If you want to hear the treadmill story, jump in the Discord.
I'm going to find him in the Discord, where you can find me as a 20-sided ninja. I'm also on Blue Sky. I'll be on Twitch one day, not anytime soon, but I'll be there. So follow me now, so that way you're ready when I'm back. Where can people find you?
Also in the Discord, hearing the treadmill story is Zando Calrissian, or just I know actually in Discord now it's just Zando. So you'll find me there as Zando.
God, you're so
and who knows? Maybe we'll be maybe we'll be in one of the voice channels playing some Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3, because I didn't know it had online co-op, and now you've got me excited to play it.
I think it has online co-op.
It does. I looked it up.
Yeah.
It absolutely does. So if you have Marvel Ultimate Alliance 3 and you've got Discord, come and play with us, because we're probably going to need more than 2 people.
Probably. I think you want 4 players when you're playing that game.
True.
So yeah, that sounds fun. Outside of that, thanks to all of our Patreons. Appreciate you. Couldn't do this without you. Help keep this show free for all of the human beings. And I would love to hear everybody's thoughts on Marvel video games in the Discord. You feel free to drop them in there in the podcast discussion channel. It'd be great. One other interesting thing that I looked up before this that has literally nothing to do with Marvel at all, but our last episode was on bears because it turns out that November 7th was Hug a Bear Day.
Mhm.
When I was looking for ideas for this week's episode, I looked up events that take place on November 14th, and wouldn't you believe it? November 14th is National Teddy Bear Day. So I think those fuckers are out there just making up fake bear holidays every week, hoping no one's going to notice.
Sons of bitches.
So they got one over on us.
Well, it's up to us to power up and take on those bear people. I just had to think of one more reason to play that sound.
Oh, always 100%. It's so good. If you are still listening, thanks for listening. And otherwise, have a super okay day. Goodbye.
A super K day. See ya.